Um, I'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. So first, we have the August 5th, 2025 minutes. I believe Commissioner Lanfear, you handed out some proposed edits, these minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. A proposed amendment at the bottom of page 5 and continuing to page 6. It was with regard to my comments, and I changed it to read, Commissioner Lanfear reminded the public that the master plan stage doesn't require addressing every possible concern. She said that proof of access is a primary concern for which the applicant bears the burden of proof. She asked that the applicant provide probative and reliable evidence regarding right-of-way ownership well in advance of the next meeting to afford the commission adequate opportunity to review the information. And then I struck some other language, and the remainder of it remains the same.
Okay. Is that a motion to amend the minutes?
It is a motion.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Barberi. Okay. Are there any other things on the minutes? Okay. So first we'll do the motion to amend. All those in favor of the motion amend signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? Ayes have it. And now for the minutes as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, now would be the time for a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Renzulli for approval of the amended minutes, seconded by Commissioner Exter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Okay. Second group of minutes is August 26, 2025. I received these minutes from the staff on Friday. I sent back a revision on Monday. I don't know if the commissioners got a chance to look at them or they've not been posted or sent to the commissioners. If not, we'll just kick it over to October. I was just curious.
They were posted today.
Okay, I'll leave it to you guys. If you guys want to kick this over till October, that's fine. You want to kick it over to, okay. Commissioner Zadelis makes a motion to kick over the minutes to October the 7th, seconded by Commissioner Coop. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We'll deal with this in October. Next on the agenda is appointment of administrative officer, planning technician, James Ray. Director Ashman, could you just explain what this is?
Sure. So each member of the planning department staff is appointed as an administrative officer, which gives them the authority to carry out their duties. So after being appointed, James will be able to sign his own recommendations to the commission.
All right.
And
okay, Mr. Ray was hired by the recently hired. He's the planning technician. So is there any further discussion? Otherwise, we can make a motion to approve. So moved by Director Correo, seconded by Commissioner Coop. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Ray, and welcome to Cranston. And you've been enjoying these meetings, I assume, and taking minutes of it. All right, next. Update on Parks and Rec. So this is, I believe, Director Pisca. I'm going to mispronounce your name, Piscapello. Oh, yes, okay. This is really in relation to the comprehensive plan, but we're just doing it separately because you're a director. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight and just state my case in regards to the comprehensive plan. After reviewing it, I feel as though with the help of athletic director Mike Trafficante, that we have a glaring omission on this plan. As a second largest city in the state of Rhode Island, one of the things that we don't have is a multi-purpose indoor facility. during COVID, we did some research and how to use ARPA funds, and it was glaring that one of the things that kept on coming out of the responses was that we didn't have a facility that would meet the needs of the residents of the city of Cranston. If you look at other municipalities, they do have indoor facilities that are quite smaller than Cranston. When we have to go into the winter months and in training for the residents and the organizations, a lot of these people have to travel to areas outside the city, which include North Kingston, Quonset Point, Tiverton, North Smithfield, and even further in Northborough, Massachusetts. So this is something that has been talked about for some time, and I think it should be added to the comprehensive plan because of all the particulars that would be added to the community. And we can make sure that our residents have an opportunity to use a facility quite like this, and to make sure that we don't have to travel as much as our peers do in other communities. A facility like this would be obviously accessible to the handicap, which is important. A lot of the older facilities do not have that option or not capable of that. This is a need that should be, if anything, on this report, in this plan, and down the road, if we do come into some funding that could potentially do that, or acquire land or use a facility that's already in the works, I think it's something that would be beneficial to the community. So I hope you would consider this. I think it's long overdue. Again, municipalities, and not begrudging them, but Johnston, Providence, they have multi-use facilities already, and I think it's time that Cranston joins the fund for the residents.
Thank you, Director. Thank you for coming in and giving us your comments. Unless someone has a question for the Director, I believe you submitted paperwork and comments to be included in the comprehensive plan to the Director,
I
correct?
did that. I also added some parks and facilities that were omitted from the original plan.
Thank you.
I think it was very important because it was a very, very small list compared to the 36 top parks, 18 basketball courts, 22 tennis courts. A lot of that was omitted, so now it's part of the plan itself.
Thank you very much, Director, for taking the time to do that. Okay. Next is the comprehensive plan amendments public hearing. So before I take public comment, let me just explain what this is all about. So, and I'm not going to make a long story, but I want to be a thorough story. In 2023, a state law was passed that stated that unless we had a locally approved comprehensive plan, we could not deny an application. Our comprehensive plan at the time had expired for a number of years. As a result, we went very quickly and adopted a comprehensive plan at the local level. That process, phase one, was completed at the end of September, beginning of October of 2024. It was my thought that this plan would then be submitted to the state for their approval. I had subsequently learned that Director Pizzullo decided not to submit it to the state, that he was going to wait till the end of our second phase of the comprehensive plan review to do so. He never consulted, at least certainly did not consult with me. First I became aware of it was at the end of June of this year. And to the credit of my colleague to the right, Commissioner Lanfear, she pointed out to me a couple of months earlier, like on the website, it had not shown that it had been submitted. So we need to get a plan submitted to the state. Now, why are we doing it right now at this stage versus what was originally thought, trying to do it all at once at the end of next year? And the reason I contacted the director at the end of June. The reason is that the General Assembly passed a law which indicated that in order to, you have 5 reasons in order to reject an affordable housing comprehensive permit. And one of those reasons is if you have an affordable housing plan approved by the state. And that would be part of a comprehensive plan. That state law takes effect January 1st of 2026. So what I indicated to the director is that we need to submit our plan, updated with all technical changes, and we're going to need to revise our housing element to be consistent with the state's goals. Because in April, the state proposed what they called Housing 2030, which set a goal of approximately 1,300 houses in Cranston by 2030. They have not yet finalized it. So we have been working towards submitting a plan that incorporates that housing element to reflect the housing goals of the state by the end of the year. The goal being we would approve it here, submit it to the city council for their review, and for the mayor to approve or not approve. And then submit it to the state and get feedback. I do this only because I feel an obligation to try to do everything I can to protect the residents and neighborhoods of this community. That does not mean, to be clear, that we will not continue to make changes to the comprehensive plan in 2026. We have other elements to revise, and we can make further elements on the housing. But I felt that it was important for us to at least get this in as quickly as possible so that we have the full legal protections that we can possibly have. With that said, originally, I thought we would probably have a vote tonight on this. The staff has not been able to complete all the work that's needed to be done to get a vote tonight. So we're not having a vote tonight on this. Second, we'll be taking public comment from all of you. That will be incorporated into the draft. I make this clear. You can submit written comments to the staff. We will review it and incorporate it, to the extent we feel it's appropriate, with the goal of submitting it to the city council in October, which brings up the second point. Originally, I tried to get it to the end of September to the city council. As all of you probably are aware, the city council went through a tumultuous phase last week, and it's a bit of a transition. So I felt that, instead of pushing this onto them this month, we can wait till October to present that to the city council. And third, again, it gives you more time to give us public input. We would have a vote in October to provide it to the city council. And this brings up another point, and I'm sorry for this long discussion, but I just want to educate everybody and understand where I'm coming from. I know that the director called me today about the Affordable Housing Commission, or the Housing Commission. So I know that a couple of their members showed up last week, and they've been showing up to workshops. They have the ability to submit comments anytime. The Housing Commission has been inactive and not meeting since about a year and a half. But if you want to submit comments, we will consider them. I've also told the director, if you guys want to come in individually or whatever it is to talk to the director, to get an understanding of the plan, to put in some more input, that's fine as well. But the thing is, I believe that we need to get a plan to the council in October so they can get this approved by the end of the year. And although it's being submitted to the state, doesn't mean that we cannot make changes the next year. But I have to do what I can to try to, I felt, in good faith, do what I can for the community. And that's why I'm doing it. So if people don't want to do it, that's I understand that, but I got to do what I think is best. Hopefully my colleagues will agree with me and we'll see what happens. So sorry for that long introduction, but I just wanted to make clear to the public why this process is moving as quickly as it is on this chapter, because of a state law change and because of the fact that it had not been originally submitted to the state. So now would be the time for public comment. If anybody wants to come up and make public comment on the comprehensive plan, please do so.
Hi again. Annette Bourne, 51 Community Drive. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. Just need to add one more name here. Sorry. So, and I have a printed copy for the staff too. Thank you for the opportunity to offer remarks at this critical public hearing. I'm here tonight to implore you to delay the vote on the city's comprehensive plan. Glad to have heard Mr. Frias's remarks, to allow planning staff to finish the appropriate research and outreach that is needed to achieve the excellent plan the city's residents deserve. My remarks address the housing element in particular, but I am sure there are many observations to be made about the other 11 elements required. Overall, it is unclear what the sudden rush is that we heard much about at last week's workshop. Thanks again for explaining. I suspected those, so I'm prepared. The 2023 law, which made our existing plan outdated, was considered handled by the Phase 1 plan passed in 2024. And I heard Director Pizzullo at the time on several occasions say it would not be submitted to the state. I was very clear about what that process was. If the rush somehow pertains to the 2025 law that makes the city subject to comprehensive permits, then there is a misunderstanding of that law. Effective January 1st, 2026, the rental exemption no longer applies to allow those qualifying municipalities to avoid taking comprehensive permits. See page 17 of H5801A. The municipalities which can avoid comprehensive permits are those who have low and moderate income housing in excess of 10% and who have an inclusionary zoning ordinance. Cranston's low and moderate income housing inventory stands at 6.23% with a delta of 1,283 homes needed to get to 10%. Reason number 2, short-circuited public engagement that was promised and is needed on such important statement that guides the city for the next 20 years. Workshops in wards 3 and 1, none in wards 2, 4, 5, and 6. Moreover, no input from any of the groups that serve residents' needs related to housing, transportation, energy, etc. I would like to make a point here about the excellence of the 2 ward workshops that I attended. The staff, including our municipal fellow, have put together compelling information about housing and affordability, as well as the public transportation and street safety. At the public workshop for the proposed development at Mulligan's Island, I saw a presentation on the connection between housing production and affordability, which I would want others to see in such a public engagement process. Number 3, no input from the Housing Commission, the city's own body. I recognize your openness to them being there, but if you look at the action plan for the housing element, they are named as a party for action throughout the plan. So the sitting members were not informed and or consulted. 4th reason, there is no math or specifics how the strategies that are listed achieve the goals stated. What is the acreage of the areas listed for the transit supportive neighborhood mixed use zone? And how are the 100 units anticipated? What are the city-owned parcels? What density will be permitted, etc. As someone who used to read and comment on these plans, those are questions that I would ask. So, I'm missing a page, oh my goodness. So what I can tell you is that incomes, in the housing affordability section, it does not really get into the incomes of Cranston residents. So the median household income for a Cranston resident right now is about $87,000. The median sales price in 2024 was $435,000, which would require a mortgage of about $3,646, which would mean an income of about $145,000. Current income of homeowners in Cranston is around $109,000, which means many Cranston homeowners wouldn't even be able to buy their own homes right now. Renters are even worse off. The 2024 Rhode Island Housing Rent Survey puts the average two-bedroom rent at $2,270, which would be affordable to an income of almost $91,000, yet the median renter income is $52,133, so nearly $40,000 short of what would be needed. There is no mention of homelessness in the plan at all. How can it be a housing plan if it avoids the critical needs of our city's most vulnerable? Lastly, spending valuable time, if this plan is sent to statewide planning, that could be spent preparing a better plan, which takes larger cities upwards of 2 years, including robust public engagement. So once this plan goes to statewide planning has a time clock to get back to our staff. That makes for a back and forth. I know you were saying that you would start working on the other plan, but why would you be wasting valuable state employees' time reading a plan that you are already suggesting you would be updating? So in my remarks at last week's workshop, I commented on the seemingly contradictory goals of maintaining what I would term a status quo, using the emotionally charged words of density and character, while making several statements about opportunities for more housing development, having options for older adults to downsize, and reaching Housing 2030 goal of 237 permits per year. If the city were to take a thoughtful look at the housing needs of its residents and workforce, we could take time to consider something like form-based code in order to have less of an impact on the visuals of physical characteristic. But that requires more time and public engagement and further discussion and calling on the input and expertise of our own Housing Commission. While we certainly have a responsibility to our residents and workforce, we also have a role as the state's third and sometimes second largest city. In that vein, we can do better. We must do better. Thank you.
Next.
Hello, my name is Bridget Graziano. I live at 191 Wentworth Avenue. I am part of Ward 1. I want to thank the planning staff for hosting 2 wonderful stakeholder meetings in Ward 1 and Ward 3. I'm grateful that I got to be part of the Ward 1 workshop. It was excellent. We had a wonderful turnout, and like Annette echoed, we had a lot of grateful residents. I'd like to just say that I have heard from a number of residents, and they really are looking for some more outreach in the other wards. They'd like to participate and may not have been able to make it to some of these events in 1 and 3. So I'm hearing from them that they'd like a few more meetings. And I'm happy to hear about our goals of meeting affordable development. I guess I would just say that I reviewed some of the mapping, and I am going to be a little bit selfish because I'm a Ward 1 resident. We have a lot of wetland resources and coastal resources. And what I would really be looking to see is to see maps projecting out 2030, 2050, 2070, reflecting the NOAA Atlas plus precipitation rates as they've increased. I'm concerned about looking for affordable development and finding out that they're in these areas that can't withstand increased flooding and development. Weston and Sampson actually worked with me in another community, and we did flood mapping, which projected out. Some of that flood mapping doesn't only include wetland resources, but it includes the existing stormwater system for the city. I just want to make sure that when we're looking at affordable housing, that we can really achieve that goal or even additional housing for our community. And I don't want to be short-sighted and not have the ability to develop and design. And I really would like to encourage looking at climate change and the reality that the projections are higher. Our precipitation rates projected in NOAA Atlas plus 14 plus, excuse me, we used to be 6.83, and for a 100-year storm, we're projecting out anywhere from 8.94 to 11 inches on the high end. And I just want to say, you know, I'm just overall concerned about that. And then checking also the maps for the new FEMA maps. They just issued new FEMA maps July 8th, 2025. There's actually a website. I'm happy to forward it over. Sometimes it's hard to find on FEMA. But I'm happy to forward it. I'm also happy to forward my comments. I'm sorry to sort of dump them on the Planning Commission tonight. I'm happy to put them in writing, and I appreciate that you're going to continue this, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next.
My name is Karen Rosenberg, and I live at 46 Bow Street. I just want to speak to the public engagement part of this. I chair a group, Cranston Forward. We have a lot of people in our group who are interested in the comprehensive plan process, particularly in the housing part, but not exclusively. And people, by and large, the public doesn't understand what this is or what the different, what choices and questions have to be confronted under the different chapters of it. So doing robust public engagement can't be satisfied by just having workshops where people come in and they're expected to opine on a subject area when they're not educated in that way. So I appreciated the Ward 1 workshop, but I thought it was very limited in that there has not been that public education. Like, how about some stuff in the Cranston Herald explaining the topics under the different sections? Or how about one or more public presentations where you're just explaining what are the different options that people in the city should consider or will, have to be addressed in the plan under different categories. So people have a little bit of like groundwork in order to be able to give meaningful input and understand the choices that are in front of the city, because this plan is supposed to reflect their priorities, and how can they even sort of participate in an informed way in that? So I wanted to point out that although there have been these 2 workshops, the one in Ward 1, again, I appreciate the Planning Commission and all the work they did, but it only was meant to address like 2 or 3 sections of the plan. So very limited so far. And I also wanted to point out with respect to the Housing Commission that my understanding is that for much of the past year and a half, most or all of the seats on the commission were vacant. So it's not as if there was a commission and it was on the commission that they didn't sort of come forward proactively and insert themselves into the process. They need to be, first of all, there's been a problem that the commission hasn't been reconstituted and all the seats filled. And that's been, sort of going on and on. Those seats need to be filled, and then the Planning Commission or the Planning Department needs to consult with them on the housing portions, as opposed to expecting them as individuals to kind of, take it upon themselves. So I guess I'm just here to say that I don't really understand whether it's necessary, like, immediately to submit the plan to the state. I thought that that was the plan a year ago and it didn't happen. And I think everybody was aware that it didn't happen a long time ago and we were all confused. So I don't really understand that, but I'm just here to say that there really needs to be much more public engagement. And I hope that happens before anything is submitted, if at all possible. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Melina Lodge. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Housing Network of Rhode Island. We're located at 2181 Post Road in Warwick. We are a statewide housing policy advocacy organization. And I wanted to speak to a couple of the items that were listed in the material. Number one being what I think is a misinterpretation of the 2025 law that was passed. The presence of an approved housing plan is not, in fact, a permissible reason for denial under a comprehensive permit application. A municipality must also demonstrate that their decision was consistent with that plan and demonstrate that they have made adequate progress towards improving affordable housing. if they were to make a denial. So the simple presence of an approved plan would be inadequate reason. And so for that reason, we think moving this forward at this point in time or in the immediate future actually does nothing to eliminate the fact that Cranston will be subject to comprehensive permit applications beginning on January 1st without the provision of almost 1,300 of affordable housing units. The other thing I think I wanted to point out was some of the language and the specific strategies that were pointed out might be evaluated against might have serious fair housing implications because there do seem to be discriminatory practices against a number of protected classes protected by the state of Rhode Island in their fair housing law. So I would suggest that you look at bedroom size, specifically in regards to familial status. So thank you so much. And we are happy. We do provide education and information as the previous speaker spoke about for the public. So we are happy to provide education around affordable housing. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening, Amy Raynone. I'm 67 Valley Street in Cranston and a member of the city's Housing Commission. I agree, won't repeat things that you've already heard from Annette and Melina, but I 100% agree with the testimony that they gave. I have written testimony, which I'll leave. I don't know if I have enough for everybody. But to summarize that, with regard to this question on timing, I would reiterate what we've heard already, that the changes that were approved in 2025 would not exempt the city of Cranston from comprehensive permits if you adopt a comprehensive plan. And if you interpret the legislation that way, then I would strongly urge you to seek legal advice on that, because I have not spoken to anyone personally that has that same interpretation. My reading of that statute, as with Annette and Melina, is that the only way to be exempt from comprehensive permits after January 1st, 2026, is if you exceed 10%, which, as Annette said, requires about 1,280 additional LMIH units in Cranston right now, and have inclusionary zoning ordinance in place. So if that's the urgency that is moving this process forward right now, I would strongly urge you to seek legal interpretation on that. In addition, it was mentioned, Annette touched on a few of the things that she thought were shortcomings of the proposed housing element with regard to the statutory requirements and the regulatory requirements that statewide planning puts on these housing elements. I would specifically drill down on a couple of them. I agree with the points that she mentioned, but in addition to that, I don't believe from my read of the proposed elements that they meet standards 5.4 or standards 5.5 in statewide planning's guidance. 5.4 requires an assessment of future housing needs, stating that the most basic assessment of future needs that must be completed is to determine how many units will be needed to house the future population, either at build out or at the end of the 20-year planning horizon. I don't believe that that is anywhere in the current document. Standard 5.5 requires plans to demonstrate how the mandated low and moderate income threshold will be met. While the plan refers numerous times to the production targets in Housing 2030, the unit production totals in the proposed housing element do not satisfy the requirements of law or statewide planning guidance that the plan includes strategies to achieve the 10% affordable housing goal. Housing 2030 specifically states that achieving the 5-year affordable goals alone should not be viewed as sufficient evidence that a municipality has met local affordable housing needs as described in the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act. It's not entirely clear to me in the table in the housing element, but it appears to propose the production of 1,365 market rate units and 205 LMIH units over 5 years. As I mentioned, the current deficit in low and moderate income housing units in Cranston is about 1,280, and that doesn't include the units that will be needed to keep up with anticipated market rate production over the plan's life. If the city as Annette mentioned, if the city submits a comprehensive plan update that does not meet the statutory or regulatory requirements, it could add up to a year to the approval process. So I would strongly urge the commission to go back to the engagement process, have a robust community engagement process that meets the guidelines that statewide planning generally looks for in this, and really look at I have comments in what I handed to you. I won't repeat them here in terms of the body of the plan and my thoughts on what the recommendations here are versus what I think the city needs right now, but I will leave that to your consideration of the written comments. But I strongly urge you to go back to the drawing board on this one and try to get some more public input on some strategies that will really address the needs of all of the residents of Cranston, including the extremely low-income residents, the renters, low-income families, and obviously the homeless. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, next.
Hello, I'm Sean, oh goodness, I'm Sean Serapative from 260 Aqueduct Road.
Could you move the microphone closer to your mouth?
Sure, I was worried about it making horrible noises. Is that better? Okay, Sean Serapative, 260 Aqueduct, right down here in Ward 2. I'd been saving a lot of comments and feedback on this for hopefully our Ward 2 meeting, which didn't happen. But I wanted to come and make a few comments today. This is not my first comp plan meeting. I was really overwhelmingly involved with the Providence comp plan when I lived there, and in Worcester when I lived in Worcester. And I'm very familiar with what a comprehensive plan, especially a 20-year comprehensive plan, looks like, including other historical examples. And I apologize that I missed your explanation when you came in. I wasn't able to get off work in time to hear it, but from what I have understood from everybody else, we're out of compliance with some new laws that are coming through. We're trying to hurry up and meet some compliance, but submitting what is really a far from complete comprehensive plan does not bring us into compliance. We're still out of compliance. This is still a problem that we have to deal with. I had a long list of comments, but I will skip most of them for brevity and lack of repeating myself. But the document felt like an awful lot of sort of magical thinking. There's not a lot of teeth. Generally, a comprehensive plan is where we present these kinds of numbers, where it's, ADUs were suggested, and I really love ADUs. I was very active in the legislation about ADUs statewide recently. But how many homes can we expect to be created in the city with ADUs? How much developable land do we have? How much actual oomph is there? It mentioned 20-something units, but that's not going to change anything for housing affordability. And the same goes for most of the aspects of this. And it's not that I don't think that we could or do have the information on this. The city has great staff and we have good people around. This is the time and the place to bring them forward, and they simply weren't there. And a lot of these ideas and stuff are usually fleshed out through a really long and sometimes exhausting public comment process, and I understand that that can be burdensome, but it's important. The different words have different things to put in, and a lot of people, as we've already heard, have very varying individual expertise, and it's worth hearing. Providence just wrapped up theirs, and for good or bad, there were some really, really excellent and well hashed out ideas in there, and some of them are already seeing plans. We can see some of the accessory residential units above single floor commercial going up on Reservoir and on Smith Street and things like that in Providence. And we've got plenty of single story commercial that would be a great spot for that to build, real tangible housing units. And there's, that would have been a great thing to discuss at the Ward 2 meeting, because it's something that I'm interested in, but it didn't happen. And maybe we'll be in trouble and maybe it'll be tricky to deal with legislatively for a little while, but I think it's worth it to really sit down and hash this out properly and have a document that we can build something off of now. I don't think it's worth doing it twice. It's a waste of the staff's time and everyone's money, and just, I don't know, get it done proper way. So anyway, thank you. And hopefully there'll be more hearings in the future where I can give the spiel I had intended.
Next.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Christina Brown, 217 Armington Street. I came before you last week. I don't want to repeat everything that everybody else has said, but I want to put on the record that I strongly support the speakers before me and their upset that this is being forced through. As you know from my testimony last week, I am also an appointed member of the Housing Commission. And I do feel like this is being rushed unnecessarily. There are so many elements to the plan, and I'm really unclear outside of the housing element, which has been up for discussion for the last week, how the other 11 chapters are going to be taken and what kind of public comment will be given on them as well. But I think, as I said last week, this is a major plan for the city. It should have the input of all the residents, as a public engagement process should be represent every single ward. And while there are themes within it that represent good ideas of how the city can grow, at least for housing development, there is no detail or action plan to meet those goals. And it is far lower than what our housing development goals should be. Like I said last week, there is a very real disconnect in what exists right now and what I think we want in the future to keep the residents that we have in the city and to minimize displacement and to create equal opportunity for Cranston to really be a city for all ages and all stages of families to live here. And just looking at the demographic data again, the increase in households that are owned with only one person living in them, and the increase of larger households having to move into rental units should give some pause into how our housing stock is being used. And like I said last week, we know that our housing sales price, the median home sales price, stated in the plan that it was somewhere around 380. In my neighborhood, there's a house for sale that's 780, right across from Edgewood Highlands. This is a neighborhood that has been traditionally a family neighborhood. That price is outrageous for any working family to own or buy that home. And what we are seeing is Cranston residents leaving because of the increase in taxes and the inaccessibility to move from a rental unit to a home ownership unit, and for those homes to be bought by people who live and who really work elsewhere. It's a huge issue and it should be taken into consideration throughout this plan. I also want to note, because I am very unclear of when the other elements will be discussed, things like water, sewer, infrastructure, and transportation. These are all incredibly important issues that should have community input and expert input taken into account, particularly where transportation is concerned. I'm a mother of 2 children, one who goes to Parkview, one who goes to Cranston East. The fact that we don't have multimodal transportation on Park Avenue, so it is safe for my children who participate in after-school activities to get to and from our home while I'm at work all day, is a really big issue that increases traffic on Park Ave, which all of us hate, everybody hates. I can't tell you the amount of hours I spend on that road. But these things should be taken into consideration in how we look at the infrastructure that we have and the transportation that we have. Like I said, I'm sorry if those comments are out of place, but I'm at this point very unclear of when all of the elements of the plan will be taken into consideration. I'll stop there. Thank you for the time.
Next. Okay, that's it on public comment. Mr. Lima, is there anybody online who wants to make public comment on the comprehensive plan?
I see no public comment online.
Okay. Thank you very much for all being here for that. We'll see where, I suggest to you again to submit all your written comments to the staff, and we will go forward. And in regards to the legal opinion, I will be talking to the solicitor about the 5 section about this law and about the first part of that law, which says about an affordable housing plan, production plan approved by the state in progress towards it. And we will go from there. Commissioner Renzulli?
Thank you, President. Is it appropriate that we make a request to the city council to fill the vacant seats
That-
on the housing commission? Because they
That's
have
not,
not.
that's
done-
not our business, Commissioner.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to get into like telling them what to do. That, you know what I'm saying? So, that's all. Okay, we'll move on to the next topic. Again, thank you for all coming out tonight on the comprehensive plan. Next, Vaughn Lane. I will have the applicant come forward to discuss their request for a continuance until October.
Hello, good evening. Attorney Tanessa Azar on behalf of the applicant. As mentioned, we've asked for a request for this for an additional month, just to catch everyone up. At the last meeting on October 5th, it was requested to get some additional information about the roads that access the site. So the next day we engaged attorney Chris Montalbano at Pilgrim Title. He's very well versed in this type of work, and we asked him for titles to the roadways. Given the history of this area, it's taking him a little bit longer to complete. So we waited as long as we could and then realized it was not going to happen for this meeting. And so, as it says in the request, we'd ask for a 1-month continuance so that he can finish his work. He anticipates that he will have the work finished by next meeting, and we'd be able to get it to you in advance of that meeting. I know we have the clock running for a decision. We'd previously given you or consented to an extension of that into October. Understandably, if you need a little bit more time for that, the applicant could grant some additional time there to give everyone breathing room in case something happens with a quorum or a meeting or any other number of things, who knows? We'd be happy to extend that out, if you want to do 2 months, whatever would make the board comfortable. And that's our request here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Azar. I will now hear from the abutter's attorney. I assume he has a response, and I've read it, the written response.
Thank you, Mr. President. Stephen Seiple for some of the neighbors from the firm Gidley, Sarley, and Marusak in Providence. You've received, I hope, my written submission that was in later than I would have liked it to be, but it was in last week. And, we've obviously objected to the continuance. We would ask you to vote to deny it tonight. This is like a broken record. We are in here every month hearing their excuses for why they don't have things done that should have been done before they filed their application. And so this is, again, we were told last time that they had definitive proof of this issue in their favor. And now, of course, we're hearing that they've needed to hire a new lawyer because obviously that proof wasn't quite so definitive. So I'm not expecting the attorney, Mr. Montalbano, who I know who he is, I know his reputation, and if it's taking him a long time to complete this, it's because this is a disaster of a situation over here, and there is no clear answer, and there is no clear and convincing evidence, and I don't think there is going to be to support their burden of proof that they need to widen Vaughn Lane. And so I would ask you to vote tonight. This doesn't need to go on forever. And I think at some point you've asked for this information multiple times and still don't have it, and that shouldn't be acceptable. One question I want to clarify is exactly when it is that the time clock expires, because I was very disappointed earlier today to email your planning department and be told that they wouldn't answer that question for me, which is just absolutely baffling to me. That is a piece of information that anyone on the planet should be able to call the planning department and find out. So I would like to make sure we are all in agreement on what that is, because I guess my clients don't deserve an answer to that from your planning department, which is very, very disappointing. It's not the first time that they've been unable to tell us what the correct dates are, which has been a disappointing problem from the beginning here. With this project, among other issues which I outlined in my submission, which my clients feel like they have the planning department working against them and cheerleading for the developer, which no one appreciates and is not appropriate. So if we could please all decide on when the time clock expires, that would be great. That is not information that should be difficult for me to be able to get.
Thank you, Mr. Seipel.
Thank
I can ask the solicitor, I can ask the director, or I can ask the assistant director. I believe it's October 12th.
That is what I have. And I
Okay.
asked to confirm that, and I was told.
I'm just want to get.
Correct. So I got a conclusory question from Mr. Seipel's firm. So the way I left it was that right now, we would do this on the record in open forum in case there's any appeal. That's the way, at least I've been taught to do it. So right now, it would be the applicant has agreed to an extension to October 12th. However, you guys have the right to request an additional extension until an additional date. If the applicant certainly wishes to agree to do that, you have the right to do what Mr. Seipel has asked. You could approve it or deny it tonight.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Or, you can also wait until October. I'm assuming if the documents have to come soon in order for me and you guys and Mr. Seipel and everyone to review them. So the longer it takes, at some point, I do agree with the objectors that, this commission has to make a decision one way or the other.
Thank you, Mr. Marcelo. So I think we're all publicly in an agreement here. It's October the 12th. Actually, I should have asked this. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Seipel or Ms. Azar? I'm sorry I did not give that opportunity. Otherwise, we can,
Mr. President, the last thing I would add is
Yeah.
we provided one new case. It was, I believe it was called Anderson.
yeah, it's East Greenwich.
It was, when you have a road, because we have no evidence here of any sort of formal acceptance of a 50-foot easement. So what the case law tells us to do, if a road becomes, if Vaughan Lane is a public road, it became a public road by the public using it as one. And when that happens, you look to the structures and the historical monuments along the edge of the road to decide how long the community intended, how wide the community intended that road to be. And in that case, the person that brought the petition was disappointed because they said the fence is over here and it's wider than you want it to be. But in our case, in Vaughan Lane, we've all been there, and the houses and the stone wall, the garage, there's curbing, there are other things that are all built up right up to the edge of the road. Historically, that is what has always been accepted as the public road is what is there is the 13 feet that's paved. So that, that is our position, and otherwise I'm just going to sound like a broken record because my position is the same today as it was the first meeting I appeared at. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seipel. Now, we've allowed public comment on this, as you know, at every meeting. If someone has I assume, I'll phrase it this way, if somebody has public comment about the continuance and is to the point, we can allow it. I just want this to move along quickly. And I'm being very indulgent by giving all this public comment. I know my colleagues are probably going, you don't have to do all this, but I just want to the point on the continuance, okay? Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for that. Jessica Salter, 6 Vaughan Lane. I know you've all heard from me before, and so I apologize for this, but this is regarding the continuance. We understand that the request for the continuance was submitted by the developer. We appreciate you taking the time to hear our position on that. I know you've heard from me before. I'll try not to cover anything that has been covered in the past. But I do want to go over briefly a timeline of this project because there have been many, many meetings at this point. On May 21st, a presentation to the planning staff at the Development Plan Review Committee occurred, which included the official presentation by the master plan application. That application, which was submitted on May 2nd, was signed by the property owner on January 6th. At that meeting, members of the public noted on the record the existence of privately owned structures that lined Vaughn Lane. This is reflected in the planning staff report submitted by Jonas Brugman with the following, quote, "There are concerns that the widening of the roadway will require the removal of privately owned structures such as sheds and stone walls," end quote. Likewise, Cranston's Public Works Director had the following comments, also reflected in the planning staff's report submitted by Jonas. Quote, "Improvements will need to be made to Winnie Street and Vaughn Lane as the paved width of both streets is too narrow for emergency vehicles to access the site," end quote. The Public Works Director also recommended that, quote, "A survey of the right-of-way is done to catalog all encroachments and create a plan that permits appropriate access to the development while minimizing impacts to encroaching structures to the greatest extent possible," end quote. Finally, the recommended conditions for approval by the senior planner, Jonas Brugman, included the following as a requirement for master plan approval. Quote, "Provision of a plan to widen the existing portions of Winnie Street and Vaughn Lane. This plan shall list all encroachments and list any encroachments that require removal to assure two-way traffic, vehicle traffic, and emergency vehicle access," end quote. On June 3rd, the Planning Commission met and the planning staff report regarding Vaughn development was presented. That report noted numerous concerns regarding entry points to the proposed development, as noted in my previous comments. In addition to the report presented by the Cranston Senior Planner, many members of the public spoke at that time, calling out the inaccuracies of both the applicant's materials and some of the measurements used in the planning staff's report. Members of the public also spoke to many other concerns, noting numerous times that privately owned structures exist in the area of suggested right-of-ways on both Vaughn and Winnie. These structures were noted as garages, stone walls, and private homes. Additionally, City Attorney Marcella noted at this meeting that there were, quote, "legal title issues that need to be answered," end quote. It was at this meeting that the public requested a site visit. During their comments, both Commissioners Renzulli and Frias requested a site visit be planned prior to the next Planning Commission meeting, which was scheduled for July 1st. We, the community, reached out to the planning staff later that week to follow up on planning the site visit. Despite numerous efforts to contact the staff, it took 2 weeks to receive a response that they would be reaching out to the developer to schedule the site visit. It was eventually scheduled for July 17th, as you know, 2 weeks after the Planning Commission meeting it was requested to precede. This effectively ensured a continuance to the August 5th meeting, giving the developer yet another month to complete the work that was asked of them. At the July Planning Commission meeting, prior to granting the continuance to August, Commissioner Frias requested that by the August meeting, the developer provide answers, quote, "addressing stormwater and drainage issues," end quote, as well as access to utilities above the Providence water easement. At that time, President Frias, when addressing the upcoming site visit, requested that there be, quote, "stakes in the ground," end quote, showing the alleged encroachments. At the site visit, the access issue was again discussed at great length, which you know, with reassurances from the developer that, "I promise you, no buildings or structures will be touched." We now officially know, as we all knew then, that was untrue. At our most recent August Planning Commission meeting, the developer submitted such last-minute materials that you, the Planning Commission, suggested a continuance. In the conversation about that continuance, President Frias asked the developer to, quote, "address in writing the conditions submitted by abutters by the September meeting." I can only assume those responses are not available tonight either. To date, this project has been granted 3 continuances and 1 extension. There can be no argument that the developer that they have not had enough time to address the issues that you have consistently asked them to address. The neighbors have supplied materials in a timely manner. We have offered answers to questions that the developer has avoided or not bothered to answer, and even offered physical representation of the alleged right-of-way because the developer did not. We, the community members, have shown up month after month and offered 100% effort. We have done that despite the fact that we do not carry the burden of proof to do so in this instance. The issue of private property versus an alleged city right-of-way was first brought to the developer's attention in May. Yet by their own admission, they waited until August to hire a title search attorney. The attorney that now has had a month to perform that service. There is no fair scenario where the developer should be granted additional time to do the things that they should have done before they ever submitted this application. If the community performed with the same lack of action, you would no longer be considering our arguments. We ask that you apply that same logic to the developer's application and deny it tonight. The community members continue to bear a financial burden in utilizing legal counsel to protect their own ownership in this neighborhood. So in summary, the list of items requested by the developer by all of you include create a plan that creates appropriate access to the development. This has not been done. Offer provision of a plan to widen the existing portions of Winnie Street and Vaughn that list all encroachments and list encroachments that show the removal to assure access to a vehicle and emergency vehicle. This has not been done. Provide answers addressing stormwater and drainage issues by the August meeting. This was not done. Provide more detail regarding access to utilities above the Providence water easement by the August meeting. This was not done. Show stakes in the ground showing the alleged encroachments at the site visit in July. This was not done. I could go on and on listing the items I referenced in my previous remarks and many more, but you get the point. At this point, we can only assume there's no good faith intent by the developer to fulfill the ongoing questions, respect your time, and respond to your very specific concerns. It has been 105 days since this project was first presented to the city, 112 days since this application received a certificate of completeness, 123 days since this application was submitted, and 239 days since the application was complete and signed by the owner applicant. How much time is too much? And lastly, on a completely different note, if the Planning Commission determines that the developer can widen Vaughn and/or Winnie, what does that process look like? Who will be responsible for the demolition of the properties in question? Will there be any compensation offered to property owners in exchange for that? And if so, what fund from the city will that be pulled from? I'm unsure of who answers these questions or when or how, but they're questions that have come up regularly in our community meetings, and I offered to bring them forward officially for consideration. We know you're tired of addressing the same issues month after month. We are too. We really, really are. We have so much things that we would rather do than this. But we thank you for your time and your ongoing commitment to considering the impact to this community. And we ask that you deny this tonight.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think that Ms. Salter pretty comprehensively provided a response for the community. If that's okay, we can, okay, all right. And I hope everybody online is, nobody needs to, between the attorney and Ms. Salter, I think you covered everything for the continuance. Does anybody really need public comment?
There's no public comment
Okay,
online.
thank you, thank you. All right, we'll go to the commissioners, talk about this. I'll open the floor up to the commissioners and how they want to, how, you know, so it doesn't look like I'm just doing all the talking. Somebody want to say something, how they want to view this, and comments, opinion? Okay, Commissioner Lanfear.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, in previous meetings, when the issue of a continuance was first raised by the applicant, it was my suggestion that they should waive their right to a hearing within 90 days. And the reason for that was to afford the commission the opportunity to have adequate time to consider issues, review evidence, and make sure that we had time to do our due diligence before making a decision. As we all know, on several occasions over several months, as Ms. Salter very eloquently described, issues have come up where either the commission wanted more time or the applicant has asked for more time. We're now at a point where I expect we almost have an answer to the question that the commission and even members of the public have been asking with regard to access and ownership. I still feel that if the applicant wants a continuance, they should waive their right to that 90 days and be at the, allow the commission to instill in a prompt and fair and timely way, decide, but not put the commission in a position where we may get very complex information 3 days before a deadline and then be constrained in trying to investigate and give our full attention and time, which this deserves for both the applicant and everyone else in the community. So I feel we are far enough along that it would behoove us to get the answer or not get the answer to the question that is important and is the applicant's burden to demonstrate with regard to access. My position that the applicant should waive it and there be no deadline, except as the commission schedules meetings in an appropriate way to finally come to a decision, isn't because I'm trying to afford the applicant more and more time or delay a decision or put the abutters and those who are in the community and interested in this through coming in time and time again. It's so that we can address it in a way that allows us to look at the evidence, to take time, reflect on it, and not have to make a decision 48 hours after information is posted on a website. That being said, grudgingly, I think that we should grant a continuance and allow that information to be provided, or allow whatever the information may be. It may satisfy the applicant's burden. It may not satisfy the applicant's burden. But I do think that it is more appropriate and reasoned for the commission to have that information than to make a decision without it. So I would also say that I don't think the commission should be put in a position again of being the entity that requires when asks for a continuance. Because the reason for that is that we have not received the information in a timely manner for us to make an informed decision. So I would suggest that at a minimum, this be, well, my preference is that we do it and require the applicant to waive their right to a hearing within the 90 days and that no longer be a drop dead date on that. I know that's probably the more extreme end of it, but I think that at this point, we have every right to require that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lanfear. Anyone else have a comment at this point? Commissioner Coop, then Director Carrera.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to actually go a little one step farther than Commissioner Lanfear. I don't want to vote without knowing the answer to this question. I wouldn't feel like I was upholding my responsibility to cast a yes or no vote without knowing the answer to what I think is the most important question in front of us right now. So I just wouldn't feel comfortable saying approve or deny without knowing what the answer is. I understand Commissioner Lanfear's point about waiving the deadline, but I think a 1 month further extension would meet that goal. Simply because if we get another month down the road and we're not happy, it's still our prerogative to vote to deny. So having a 1 month extension does not put us in a position where we would end up approving this by default. If we don't have the information, if there's not anything responsive, we can always just vote to deny. So I think that holds our feet to the fire. as well as the applicants.
Director Carrera?
Yeah, and I vote for a continuance for a couple of different reasons, and it's pretty much because of my own selfish needs. We have over 300 miles of roadway in the city of Cranston. Every one of those is within a right-of-way. If their definition of what they're saying is that it only becomes a public road by public use, to me, that would mean anything outside the curbing of a roadway, if people don't walk on the side of the road, that is going to be the right of way. And I'd be curious to see what that really means in a definition through the process that they're in the process of going through, is to have the attorney do this title search, because of those 300 roads, I'm not aware of any, and I've only been with the city a few years, but I've been doing engineering for 40 years. A right of way is always a right of way. That was a deeded portion of the land adjacent to what would be private property. That's given to us in every single plat that is ever recorded in the city of Cranston. And if that is not correct, then I would like to know that, because then we need to be looking at this totally different going forward with all the other roadways that we have in the city of Cranston that have a road on it. Just because the roadway is less than what the right of way is, that does not mean everything outside the roadway is no longer part of that right of way, if that makes any sense. So I would like to get a definition. I would like to hear from the title attorney. I would like to find out exactly what that means by definition of what a right of way is versus a roadway.
Anyone else? Let me just start out this way. The applicant has known about this issue for approximately 2 months, ever since Mr. Stiepel submitted his objection. I'll phrase it that way. And it has been an issue. I will accept going forward to have a continuance, but I'm going to say this to my colleagues, well, you know, the majority will rule. Next month it's it for me. If you can't figure out if you got a right of way after 90 days of this issue being around, and the reason I would agree to this 90 days, so I understand the attorney, Mr. Stiepel's cases that he cited to us basically was the commissions in those cases asked for information, couldn't get it, kept getting extensions. It was about 4 or 5 months in general. From approximately beginning of June to October the 7th, that'd be 4 months at that point. And this has been an issue. And if you can't get it in by that time, credible, convincing evidence, clear and convincing evidence, then there's a problem. In regards to the, you know, and other things I've said before, which is you have to, you know, I wanted you to respond to the objection of the abutters for the conditions they wanted to impose. You haven't done that yet. So you'd have to do that as well. You'd have to present evidence on the right of way for at least Winnie Street is your major problem. Vaughn Lane is more of I'll have to think about this some more between his cases and what you presented. But this is, so I'm okay with going to continuance to take Commissioner Lanfear's point, 2 points about what you said. We need this a couple of weeks ahead of time so that we can evaluate and the abutters can see it and it's on the website. If Mr. Marcella has a suggestion or the staff has a suggestion as to when we would need this before the meeting, please let me know. We can say so now, because it's really not fair to give me stuff the day of the hearing and expect me to evaluate it. And so the Commissioner Lanfear's point, you know, even if we grant you the extension to October 7th, a continuance, excuse me, October 7th, we would probably need another 2 months just in case you do this last minute thing, although just for safety purposes, like until December the 12th. But I don't see, I'm telling you, like right now, this is kind of like either you have the evidence or you don't, October. And I understand your frustration of having to come out here every month to the side of the city. I I've been in court cases and you just want the judge to make a decision. And the judge is thinking about appellate issues and due process and making sure it's done, Ts are crossed and Is are dotted. And I'm hearing from my colleagues, this is, for example, so from the first meeting I said to you, this was a by right. So that takes a, to reject a by right is a lot of things. So because this thing could be subject to appeal, I just want to get all the evidence we can. And again, give them the opportunity. If they can't present it, then I think you know where I'm going based on what I've said before. Director, when would we want, have you consulted with the solicitor and what date we'd want those documents before the next meeting?
I would need them by September 25th.
Okay. Would the Mrs. Czar, is that acceptable to you?
Good evening again, Tanessa Azar. Yeah, that should work because our understanding was it was going to be 2 additional weeks. So I think that would fit if I just look at the calendar. Yep, I think that should work for everyone.
And
did you want me to comment about allowing more time for a decision? It seems like maybe there's some mixed opinions about if the clock's just turned off completely. I'm not sure if the solicitor has a position, if it can be turned off completely. Do you want me to give you like 5 months, something to make you comfortable? I agree with you that, next month is kind of when you'd like to hear something and it maybe won't be needed.
it would be, yeah, I mean, to me, October 7th and then the deadline is October 12th is a problem, just in case something comes up, although I'll tell you, you'd have to come up with a pretty big emergency for me not to make a decision in October.
Let's not tempt fate with anything that could happen in the world, maybe.
Yeah, but that's just me personally. I don't know about my
Understood.
colleagues. But it's like, what, do you have a date? And then we can I can just read the room and we can just make faces and kind of like, does it work or not? So what's your suggestion?
Do you want to start, well, take us through the end of the year? So, I'm not sure when your January meetings are probably not out for a schedule yet. So maybe to mid-December to encompass the rest of the meetings of the year.
Yeah,
Does that work?
I think it would be December 15.
Something like that work for everybody, kind of?
No, and
This is
so the
just-
people don't freak out.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to explain something so people don't start freaking out. And Commissioner Lampier suggested an extension possibly until December 15th, not that the commission would utilize it. Huh? No, I'm sorry. Commissioner Lampier, if I characterize it correctly, I think you were open to a continuance, but you wanted no deadline.
For a decision to be made, just to clarify, this is the board's decision
Yeah,
clock,
This-
not the continuance of the meeting itself.
right. The continuance is until October 7th.
Is what we've asked for, yes.
Yeah, that has happened. I think that is a majority towards that. The question is on the commission having a deadline to make a decision in order to a buffer in case something comes up until, let's say, mid-December. That's what we're talking about. Not that the commission is going to take until mid-December to do this. I mean, we'll see what happens, but is that kind of like what we're talking about here?
My concern was that, well, let me back up. My intention, and I think yours too, is that we would receive this information in a timely manner, perhaps by the September date that the planning director suggested. And we would have adequate time to review and make a decision. My concern is that if we don't extend that date beyond, should the information come to us late and we don't have adequate opportunity to review it, we would run afoul of the requirement that we decide within that time period. And if we ran afoul of that, then it would be considered a granting of approval to the applicant. So I am not trying to push this any farther out than we need to, but I'm asking that there be a cushion should October 7th come and for some reason we don't have what we needed. Well, let me not say that. What we have before us, we didn't get soon enough to do an adequate review and make a decision on. That's why I'm looking for that cushion, so to speak, so that we don't find ourselves in violation of the time period that we have to make a decision in.
Yeah, so basically, so the public can understand, and I think you understand, is Commissioner Lampier is looking for a little bit of cushion in case something comes up to evaluate. And on September 25th, we would need the title search information, whatever you have, so that everyone can look at it and evaluate. And I'd also want a response to what I said, your response to the memo that the abutters submitted on conditions. Is that kind of work for everybody here, more or less, like September 25th and then December 15th? Meaning September 25th is the deadline for submission of documents. October 7th, you have the hearing. And if there's a need to go to December 15th at the latest, but like I said, I'm just telling the public right now and yourself, I am probably going to be ready. I think I'll be ready to vote on October 7th, unless, I don't know.
Totally
Okay.
understood from the applicant perspective.
Understood? Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner, Vice Chairman Coop? Oh, I just want to make sure everyone, does anybody else have anything to say? Commissioner Razzulli?
Thank you. I'd just also like to go on the record to say that I would like to vote on October 7th. We have waited long enough, and I think that the residents have been patient, and I understand their point that they have been providing information and we've been waiting on the developer. So I'd like to vote October 7th. Thank you.
Understood.
Does anybody else has anything else to say? Then motion time.
I'll just note, we'll make a written request, excuse me, a written extension for your record tomorrow if it so passes today.
Correct, for the December 15th.
Yep.
Okay. Motion time.
Mr. President, I make a motion to continue this matter to the October 7th meeting, subject to the applicant's agreement to extend the original 90-day deadline for decision until December 15th of this year.
And that they will submit documents.
And that documents requested will be submitted by September 25th.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Commissioner Renzulli. All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Sorry, was not resolved today. We'll see you next month. Yeah, we're gonna have a 5-minute recess so the Vaughn Lane people can leave the room. Thank you. We ready to rock and roll, people? Okay, before we start on the Cranston Street project, solicitor reminded me that would probably behoove us, out of abundance of caution, to continue, make a motion to continue the public hearing on Cranston Comprehensive Plan until October 7th. So just to continue the public hearing, and if we have a decision to make.
Is there any credence to what they're saying as far as future public hearings on this? I mean, is it defined? Do we need to say?
Yeah. Okay. It was an oversight.
Motion to continue the matter to October 7th.
Second.
Made by Commissioner Coop, second by Commissioner Dallas. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. I apologize to everybody. Director Ashman showed me a note while everything was going on. I said, talk to the solicitor, and then we had Vaughn Lane. I apologize about that. All right, next on the agenda is Cranston Street zone change. Is the applicant here and wishes to be heard in this matter? Yes. Excuse me, Commissioner Exeter will be recusing himself on this matter.
Good evening. For the record, Robert Murray, law offices at 21 Garden City Drive in Cranston. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner and applicant of the petition to the City Council to change the zone of the property at 1746 Cranston Street. With me this evening is Scott Aceto. Scott's family, starting with his grandfather, has owned this property probably for 50 years. The Aceto Family Trust is the actual owner of the property, and Scott is a real estate developer, and he has teamed up with Richie Bakari of Churchill and Banks to develop this property if the City Council sees fit to adopt the change of zone that's before you this evening. This obviously would be the first step in a development process that would bring us back to the Planning Commission in the future as a major land development. But with your permission, I'd just like to go through the specifics of the ordinance. I know you have your planning staff recommendation, which has recommended to you to send a positive recommendation to the City Council. There will be an ordinance committee meeting next Thursday, the 11th, which we will attend and make a formal presentation to the ordinance committee. Prior to this evening, we did hold a neighborhood meeting last week at St. Mary's Feast Society Hall. This subject property is right across the street from the new Eatree Park, and we had a nice complement of neighbors, businessmen, some Plan Commission members stopped in briefly, elected officials, and so we had a very positive discussion, and I think in fairness, the project was well received. Both Richard and Scott spoke to the group that evening. I know Jonas has, last week we shared with the public kind of a conceptual site plan, and I'm glad he even labeled it as concept. We also shared some possible elevations and renovations of what this could eventually detail. Eric Zoiner of EDS Design is the project architect. He's multi-talented in his group. Scott and Richard are working closely with them. Just for the benefit of the commission who can't see the board. Passing out just so they have it. Is an extra one, because David's not sitting there. So this property is, as stated, across the street from Mitri Park, and it is presently zone C5. C5, as you know, under our zoning ordinance, is for a primary use of heavy business and industry. It fronts on Cranston Street and backs up to the bike path. And on the opposite side of the bike path is a substantial industrial area. I refer to as Calder Street, Macklin Street, back there. The ordinance has been submitted to the City Council for consideration is to rezone this property to C2, which is a neighborhood business zone. And C2 zone is on the map before you is reflected in the pink color. The purple is the industrial, the C5 is the dark, let's call it mauve. You can see the subject property outlined in the orange stripe. There are two lots there, lots 282 and 287. There is an existing 4-unit structure on the property, and the ordinance that's been submitted to the council, if approved, would allow us to develop up to an additional 32 units. The plan that I shared with you this evening, what you're looking at right there is 30 units. Again, it was just for demonstrative purposes to show how units could be laid out, the style of condominiums, and what's anticipated in that concept is, for example, 2 parking spaces per unit, and there would be no direct access out onto Cranston Street from those units along the front. And we have, early on, looking at the benefit to access to the bike path, things like that. The ordinance presented to the City Council beyond the uses that would be allowed in a C2 zone. Our intention here is to do a condominium development. While other uses are allowed in the C2 zone, right now the plan is not to do any type of mixed use. There's a series of uses that are allowed in the C2 zone. Our primary focus is the development for the multifamily dwellings. The ordinance itself, just talk about a couple of specifics. Obviously, as outlined in the staff report, this is a denser proposal than would be allowed by the strict enforcement of our calculations in the zoning code. Both Richard and Scott feel that this level of development is appropriate. And I'm going to have Scott talk a little bit about this in a minute, but one of the concepts here, as you can see by the elevations and the exteriors that they're looking at, is this is Knightsville. It's across from Mitri Park. The European villa type discussion comes into play when looking at this being a very unique development. I talked about the parking. In our ordinance as proposed, we're asking the City Council to allow us to apply the C3 district regulations, not the C2. One of the advantages to that is first, in the C3, and this is long established, there are 0 setbacks allowed both for front and side setback. It just helps in the development of the development concept if we can have some flexibility, and that's one of the considerations asking the City Council to approve the C3. There is a difference in the C2 versus C3 in height. 30 feet's allowed in the C2, 35 in the C3. But as a review of the ordinance would say, we're asking permission to construct up to 4 stories, which would be higher than obviously 35 feet. Again, it allows the architect to work with the developer into some interesting designs and really make this a special property. The obviously of interest based on the discussion earlier this evening and the comprehensive plan is the developers have agreed to an affordable housing component of proposed 15%. They would be prepared, to make that obviously deed restricted for at least 30 years and work within the Rhode Island housing guidelines. So this, if allowed, and we come back here with a development project, it has the benefit of providing needed housing. This property has been long vacant and would be a nice investment in the Knightsville community to capitalize on what's already been there. The city and the planning commission and the city council have been making investments in Knightsville, and we're hoping to bring people living in the community right into Knightsville. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to, Scott talked passionately about this property and his grandfather's involvement, and just, the hour's late, but we just want to, Scott would just like to share a couple thoughts with you about his excitement for this project.
Thank you, everybody, for the time tonight. So as Bob mentioned, this property's been in my family's, I guess, ownership for close to 50 years. My grandfather, when he came to the country, this was one of the first places he was able to afford buying. So looking back, since I've been alive, I've had cousins, I've had aunts, uncles, all different family members living there. It's still our staple hangout for the St. Mary's Feast, for when the Madonna statue comes by. So as we looked at doing this project, partnering with Rich was a great fit, because his father and my grandfather actually worked together many moons ago, building throughout their years. So it was a way for us to kind of build a legacy that we looked at both of our ancestors as something that they may be proud of. So some of the pictures and renderings that you've seen, we're doing that to try to match the aesthetic of what the neighborhood has started to build up. I think the streets are still red, white, and green, if I'm not mistaken, at the moment. So making this kind of one of the foundational corners of Cranston Street and what that area is starting to turn into was something that we were very proud of. And again, we were hoping to build more of a legacy project on this rather than just, the cookie cutter square boxes that is possible to do out there. So with the hard work that the city put into renovating Eatery Square, we wanted to continue that and start to add and really help hopefully bring more development into this area that's, quite frankly, sat vacant since I've known it, and sure since many of you have known it as well. So, thank you in advance for any consideration, and happy to answer some questions if needed.
Does any of my colleagues have a question for Mr. Murray on this project? Just a quick thing, because I'm looking at the plan for the first, Bob, I'm sorry. Rob.
Okay, just a couple of quick questions. The ordinance as proposed will require a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit.
That's proposed.
Okay, and would allow uses other than residential, although the intent is 32 units.
Right. self-storage and a few other, many other.
Understood,
So,
yeah.
you know, we're trying to go in a different direction. Housing is.
So unrelated to the ordinance at all, just curiosity, is there any plan to rehabilitate the existing structure that's on the site?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
The ordinance says.
And the question is the existing 4 units. Any plans to rehab, update that building?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for
I-
Mr. Murray?
Yeah, I just, one quick thing, Bob. With the affordable housing statutes, some of them say you can't mandate 2 parking spaces. You can only do 1. Is there going to be a way around that? That just popped into my head regarding, you know, the towns aren't allowed to mandate 2 parking spaces for some of those units. Yep. Okay. Yep. No, it is a good, yeah, it is a good number. I just didn't want that to get caught in. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, on that point, I think, if this was a comprehensive permit, the city could not require you to have 2 parking spaces. But if you guys want to have more than 1 parking space, I don't think there's a real problem. It's their discretion. It's just that we couldn't if this was a comprehensive permit, I don't think we could require them to have 2 spaces. I think that's what the point Mr. Marcelo was making, I think.
We're gonna amend that.
No, and I get, it depends on the situation. I think that, yeah, 2 parking spaces works, is the default, and as many people expect that in certain situations. Just going back to some quick questions. This is the first time I'm looking at the plan itself. So there's no commercial at all on this, correct?
Here that you see, almost to the northwest corner, if you will, right? The only one that's a gray roof.
Next to the rectangular.
Yeah.
Okay.
That currently is three units with an office, so four units there. So that's the current mixed use. We're not going to leave that building as is. That would be redone to kind of match. I don't think we have a finalized plan of what exactly would go there, but that would most likely be where the commercial component is. And that's also the one most closely touching the neighboring property, which is commercial.
And Mr. Murray, could you just remind me what kind of commercial uses are allowed in the C2, or at least allowed under this proposed ordinance? Just some examples. You don't have to go into.
Well, I mean, the list is lengthy, but I mean, you know, C2, as you know, is a neighborhood business.
Right. Okay.
So let's just talk about the, you know, beyond the esoteric ones like, you know, nursing homes and all that stuff. But, you know, you're looking at it, antique shops, artisan workshops, bakeries, banks, body art establishments, you know, business and professional office, catering services, commercial recreation, communication service, broadcast studio, convenience store, a crematory, a drugstore, you know, those hardware store, you know, none of, you know, when you're talking about real retail uses, I don't think we're looking to, you know, some of these would not be, obviously, we're not gonna put a bank there.
No, I understand. I just want to kind of have an idea, just
Right, but
as I
mean,
look at
it's-
these
it's-
residences being
it's
close by.
Whatever your imagination, and if you have a specific one, I will answer it, but I mean,
They're neighborhood businesses, so generally they work in a neighborhood that's residential. I
Right.
understand. Okay.
dry cleaners.
Yeah.
Veterinary.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, it's a mixed use mixed use can sometimes be challenging if it's a residential with a heavy industrial use, for example. That could be a problem, but this ain't it.
I think the intention is, if there was a commercial use of it would be an enhancement to the residents that live there.
Yeah, they could go to the laundromat, for example. Yeah.
Or a coffee shop. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not looking to do a coffee shop, but, things that, you have a built-in audience within 15 feet of your establishment, what would make sense there? But there's plenty of, this was discussed last week at the neighborhood meeting, and there were business people there and representatives of St. Mary's Sea Society. There's a lot of available space in Knightsville for kind of neighborhood businesses, and, this could end up being one, but it's not the driver of this project.
Okay. And the last question on the density, as you pointed out, generally the density in this area would be lower in a C2. I think it's about 10 units lower than you're asking for more. And the reason, of course, you're asking for it is because it's an affordable housing component to make up for the below market rates for the others, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I was going to say, this is 2 acres, so it's basically 5 units per acre approximately, which is what a comprehensive permit would be at the state level. And your planning is condos at this point? Okay. All right, we'll see what happens. Any other questions for Mr. Murray? Okay. Mr. Bruggeman, you could give your staff report.
I'm going to try to start from a point, so I'm not repeating too much, but as was stated before, we're looking at a rezone. Specifically, something that wasn't mentioned before that I would like to mention is our comprehensive plan is very specific about, this area of Knightsville, specifically when it comes to the future land use map. In the 2010 plan, it actually had a list, when we still had that list of like all the specific rezones. This lot and all this area that you can see here in pink, all of that was supposed to be rezoned to C2 anyways. So specifically, this request is very much in line with which was the C2 rezone is specifically in line with the future land use map. And it's been in line with that for well over a decade. As you can see, there's still a bunch of lots that still need to be rezoned, but as we said, the multifamily elements, that's an allowed use within the C2 and very prominent in the area. And if a commercial component is going to be provided, then it would be pretty much of the uses would probably, the businesses probably be pretty much in line, which is what already there, such as, a lot of the restaurants and retail. Though notably, if a commercial component is provided, then they'll have to look for ways to accommodate that parking as well. And here you can even see future land use map a bit more zoomed out, and you can see it's right in that Main Street area. Knightsville is kind of a bit of a historic Main Street, and that is kind of right in the middle of that section. Just a lot. And to just kind of show this like a quick overview of the 6 conditions that they're asking for, along with the C2 rezone. Just to note, 1, 4, and 5. I am running low on battery on the laptop. 1 second. Tom, do you have an extra charger for this? So I can plug this in. Apologies. Should be working. Thank you. So conditions 1, 4, and 5 are already basically in line with the C2 zone. So I'll mostly just be talking about conditions 2, 3, and 6. Of course, condition 2 basically allowing the 36 units, and condition 3 relates to the dimensional regulations. I put in a table here that shows, C2 and C3 are very similar zones. Of course, what C2 would allow, or what C3 allows over C2 is the 0-foot front setback and 0-foot side setback, and the increased lot coverage. And the 4 stories here is covered also by section 3, which allows a height up to 4 stories. But as we've seen in the proposed plan, just because they're allowed 4 stories doesn't necessarily mean that's something that's going to be, proposed. Just provides for more options. Briefly about the surrounding area, we've already talked about this. Specifically, I've mentioned that this is kind of an American Main Street. This about a century ago was more of an industrial area, so that's where the C5 kind of comes in. C5 used to be, supposed to be that kind of transition zone between commercial housing and industrial. The industrial, of course, being on the other side of the bike path. The bike path kind of acts nicely as this like green buffer between that industrial site and Knightsville. But now this area has, for the last couple of decades, more been targeted towards retail and typical things you'd see in main streets, American Main Streets. So retail, mixed-use housing, typically first floor commercial, second floor housing type of stuff. And that's what's much in the area, specifically around Cranston Street, Park Ave, and a little bit into Phoenix as well. And the lots, these lots specifically, but commercial properties exclusively, besides, in the rare. So there's little impact there. And as we discussed, there's multifamily uses across throughout the neighborhood. And I have already talked about the zones. Briefly wanted to talk about some of the conditions as well. So this conditional zone is basically in line with other conditional zones that we've improved in the past. Notably, I kind of used Knights Corner and 661 Park Project developments as examples. Both of them were permitted additional height and permit additional density in exchange for 15% of the total unit count to be deed restricted for affordable housing. Really, the major difference between this one and those ones is parking, typically along with that additional density, the increase in multifamily, you would also, along with that would be a reduction in parking requirements, typically between 1.25 and 1.5. And here, of course, the developer is asking for 2 parking spaces per unit. You know, I will talk about this more later, but our also staff recommendation is that that could certainly be lower to allow for more flexibility. It is, you know, it would be in line with previous things that were asked for. It would be in line with best planning practices. Additionally, there's also a lot of transportation, alternative transportation to driving in the area, but we also don't really want to beat a dead horse if, you know, the developer specifically is asking for 2 units. And also want to say that the proposed additional height and density, which is conditions 2 and 3, they conform to the area and we generally think are warranted exchange for the affordable housing. As we said before, stuff like we've allowed this in the past, or we've seen that exchange in the past, and is very much in line with inclusionary zoning ordinances or like we said, like comp permits. And additionally, this is also, you know, located in a walkable area with 2 RIP to bus services and bike paths. So it's something that's, you know, has a lot of existing infrastructure that could accommodate more multifamily housing. And the area already features high density multifamily housing, most notably Knightsville Manor. But there's also, you know, smaller multifamily buildings in addition to another townhouse multifamily on Park Avenue that we permitted. So that it is already in the area. And as I said before, it is standard practice and pretty much consistent with other approvals. In regards to the C3 dimensional requirements with the minimal front setback and the side setback, it's very much in line with what's already in the area. You know, there are several buildings that have, you know, front side setbacks that are less than 5 feet, or sorry, less than 25 feet. Many even go straight up to the lot line. And it's, you know, that kind of development is very much in line with historic main streets as well. Yes, I already talked about the parking requirements. Regarding the consistency of the comprehensive plan, one thing to note is the comprehensive plan does not provide like a dedicated density range for the C2. The neighborhood commercial services, C2 is part of that category. And generally the proposed use of multifamily is very much in line with that category as well. So we consider it consistent with the future land use map. And, you know, our housing element, the current one, speaks pretty clearly that we have a tight housing market with very high demand and low supply in housing units, which has created high numbers of cost burden households. And we have several goals, policies, and actions that specifically list Knightsville as an area where we should be targeting new development. And we have more goals, policies, and actions that, you know, call for the city to provide more affordable housing in the city. So we also believe that this ordinance is very much in line with our comprehensive plan. And this is also our extensive list of all the goals and policies that we believe in actions that we believe, you know, say that we should approve this, this ordinance change. So findings, we have to make 2 findings. One is for the consistency of the comprehensive plan. For 2010, that should actually say 2025. Should have double checked that. And generally believe that it is
that this ordinance is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. And for finding B, the recognition and consideration of purposes of zoning and city code. We also believe that is that we recognize the general purposes of zoning and consider and review the proposed ordinances, and ordinances found to be consistent with the general purposes of zoning. And our recommendation that we want to forward, that we recommend is a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. Any questions for the staff before I turn it over to public comment? Okay. Is there anyone here in the room that'd like to make public comment? Seeing none. Mr. Lima, is there anyone online that would like to make public comment on this application?
There's no public comment online.
Thank you, Mr. Lima. Just a couple of last questions for Mr. Murray. Oh, you have a question too? Okay, Miss Commissioner Lanfear, I have a question. Mine's is pretty quick. On the parking issue, if you decide to put commercial in there, after all, you have the right to do so. Will you, does the zoning ordinance as you has proposed require you to have sufficient parking for the commercial as well as the residential? Do you understand
Yeah,
my question?
I do. I think we would have to analyze the parking first. The ordinance talks about 2 per dwelling unit. The code addresses parking for requirements for, not that it would be, if it was a restaurant, you would need 1 space for every 3 seats, things like that. So we'd have to, and that would all be vetted through the planning commission as a major land development. And so.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure that we're not approving an ordinance that says you don't have to conform to commercial parking spaces. That's not my interpretation either. I just want to make sure it's on the record. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lanfear?
Thank you. Mr. Murray, can you refresh my recollection? Do we, on other matters where we have done a zone change, haven't you usually come to us with both the ordinance and master plan at the same time?
I don't know. I don't want to say with 100% certitude. The projects I've been involved in that come to mind were Knight's Corner, the Print Works. I was not involved in 661 Park Avenue. And from memory, I think we did, but I don't want to, Mr. Frias is shaking his head. The reason we didn't do it in this case is because before we get heavily involved in the design of this site, we needed the underlying zoning to allow it. In the Printworks case, we maintained the industrial use, but we allowed the multifamily dwelling. Okay. In the Knight's Corner case, that was industrial, but you allowed 156 units of multifamily dwelling. It was a preference of that developer to try and present the whole thing at once. That's why we presented at least a concept plan so you'd understand what we're talking about. We were more trying to sell an idea here tonight with a vision, as opposed to this is the master plan we're asking you to approve. We will come back to you if the city council rezones it in short order with the first step of the major land development. But several minutes ago, you asked a question. I think the answer was yes.
Yeah.
You did, and I didn't want to rely on my recollection that that's what I thought. And the reason why I asked that is it looks like a wonderful proposal, and it looks like something that would be good for Cranston and great for that area, and wonderful to have an affordable housing component with it. The only pause I have is that we are going to change the zoning by right and hope that what you are telling us about tonight comes to pass. If for some reason something occurs beyond the owner's control or in the economy or otherwise, we have made this a zone that can have many other things there by right that we might not choose to approve. So that's why I was asking why it wasn't coupled with a master plan proposal.
Through the chair, I understand the proposition. I would respond to that by saying there are many uses allowed today in the C5 zone that I think would be incompatible with the character and the vision that the city's trying to extrapolate in the Knightsville area. So if we don't rezone it, the C5 uses are not as desirable, in my opinion, from a community point of view. In the C2 zone, where, you know, we're asking, yes, you're taking something on faith here, but, you know, this is not the last stop. This is the last comment on this. We're coming back to you with a master plan of multifamily housing. So, you know, but I mean, you know, we could just go through the city process of putting up, and I have the plan, they've looked at it, you know, self-storage units, you know. Now, if that's the vision, and I don't think it is, that this commission of the city wants, and but they chose not to. This is exciting, it's new, but yeah, we're asking you to take on faith that yes, C2 uses, because I don't know if there is a mixed use component exactly what that would be. I don't want to buttonhole them and say you can only have a barber shop, or you can have a tattoo parlor, but you know, you can't have, you know, a professional office. So
A question for the staff, then I'll have a question or comment from Mr. Murray. At 36 units, do we generally ask for traffic impact studies at master plan level? Or is that too small? I just don't know what the cutoff is. That's generally the staff uses.
I think at this location on Cranston Street, we would not need a traffic impact study,
Okay,
but that would be at your discretion.
all right, because I don't travel Cranston Street very often. No, I live on that other side. Anyway, I'm just curious, like, you know, we may want a traffic impact
the
study.
checklist speaks to it at preliminary.
Yes, okay, because I just don't recall, like, there's certain parts of Cranston Street that's a problem, is what I think is on traffic. I mean, maybe the director of Public Works knows better than me where the traffic situations are in the city. I don't know if this location is a potential problem, but if it is, I just point out that we should have a traffic impact study when it comes to master plan or preliminary plan stage. The other thing that go on Commissioner Lanfear's point, now I'm just saying this as a comment for you on this. Generally, I think Commissioner Lanfear is correct, is that usually when we do a zone change, we have some kind of master plan submission, so we know what we're approving with the zone change. The reason that I feel comfortable not requiring that on that basis is that it's 36 units in an area where everything else around it's basically C2. And then you have the Knightsville Manor up to the north. So this kind of works. If this was a 600 unit project, no, just not that, you know what I'm saying? That's just not going to happen with me. I'm not going to do a zone change for a 600 unit project without master plan and everything else worked out. So that's why I just want to make that comment to you, why I think this is a little bit different than it is, because on Knight's Corner, it was about 156 units approximately. On Printworks is about 129, and then you reduced it down to 100. So this is on the smaller scale. So I feel a little bit like this is probably okay. So that was just my general comments in response to Commissioner Lanfear. All right, any other questions or comments from my colleagues on the Knights, not the rezone in Knightsville? All right, you have the recommendation up there. If not, I don't think there's anything more to be added here. If there's nothing further, we can have a motion. Who's doing the motion? The other side is pointing at each other. I don't know why.
I make a motion to accept the positive recommendation for the zone change by the planning.
Okay, motion made by Director Carrero, seconded by Commissioner Barberi. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Aceto.
Thank you very much. We'll see you again.
Okay, now we move to zoning board of review recommendations. First up is the Hortons on 20 Swift Street. Whenever you're ready to proceed.
We have an application for a dimensional variance at 20 Swift Street, Assessors Plat 2, Lot 3120. The proposal is to demolish an existing garage and construct a new garage within the same setbacks as the original structure. You can see the lot here. It was located in the A6 zone. The future land use of single family 7.26 to 3.64 unit per acre density. Here are some street views of the property. We can see the proposed garage in the corner of the lot, which is also going to be used as an ADU. Here is the site plan layout with the proposed setbacks. I also included in this presentation the architectural plan, just kind of showing you the layout. What's important to me here is that in corresponding to building code, there's no windows on the back property line, and that's important just because of the way that it abuts with the garage right near it. The relief being requested here is mostly regarding setbacks. The rear yard setback, the existing was 1.2. They are also proposing 1.2. The required is 5 feet for an accessory structure. And the side yard setback. No. Sorry. Okay. And the side yard setback being existing 2.5, they are proposing 2.5, and relief requested is 2.5 feet as well. Staff finds that this application does not impose an undue nuances and is not out of character. The proposal is a reconstruction of an existing accessory use, which is allowed by right. Many neighboring properties in this area have substandard frontages and widths, and so therefore all of the garages in this area are commonly very close to the property lines. Staff finds this application consistent with goals H2 and H3, as well as policy H3 and H6, which are outlined in the comprehensive plan. And staff recommends a positive recommendation on this application to the zoning board of review.
Are there any questions for the staff on this? Commissioner Lanfear.
Thank you. Can you go back to the first page, please?
The information page?
Yes, down a bit. Must be the next page.
Oh, okay.
It's still the narrative.
With some information?
No, it was the very beginning, like the
Okay.
title page.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me. So under subject property, and I know we did this one before, but it says the subject property is located at 116 Shaw Avenue.
That must be incorrect.
So Shaw Avenue is one that we did about a month or two ago. My sense is that you probably used the form that was existing,
Correct.
but I think we need to be careful when we talk about whatever section it may be, that we reference the correct property. I
Thank
don't
you.
know if the plat and lot are correct, but it does talk about square footage, and then it says with frontage on Shaw Avenue.
Okay.
So we need to, number one, be careful about that.
Is that on the first page of the memo?
It is.
Okay, I can also amend that.
When this goes to the zoning board.
The other question or observation that I have, I guess the first question is, the owner is John Horton and another woman as trustees, correct? It's listed on
Correct.
the map. I tried to access on the application, there was a page that had a PDF icon that was the owner affidavit, and I could not open it.
Okay, that makes sense that it probably wasn't clickable. That might be an error on my part, and I can maybe get that uploaded separately. I think I looked over that.
So my question is, did John Horton and I can't remember her name. There is a woman whose last name is also Horton, and they are trustees.
Did they submit the affidavit?
Yeah, was signed by them? And why is the applicant Juan Catala? Does he live there? It says it's owner occupied. And that's why I wanted to see the owner.
Excuse me, he's a contractor
He is the contractor?
on the application.
It did say, it did
says
say
that who's submitting
contractor.
this application, Juan Catala is a contractor.
Okay. So that answers that question.
Thank you.
Do you know if it is owner occupied?
No, at this moment, no.
And that's a question that I would have because I believe it affects what they are entitled to do at the property. And my other question is, I don't have the general law citation in front of me, but I think that this may be superseded by state law. And if so, the reference to state law would have been helpful. And I guess I sort of looked to our solicitor. I apologize. I had it on my laptop, which I left at home, so I am now dealing with my phone. But it does say that accessory dwelling units effective June 21st, 2024. There are 3 scenarios. One is on an owner-occupied property as a reasonable accommodation for a family member with disabilities, that it may be located within an existing detached structure.
Not to interrupt, but that is what is aligned with this proposal.
Excuse me?
That is the option that is aligned with this proposal.
Correct. And so my question was, well, I guess my observation is it would be helpful as a commissioner to have something that says state law allows an ADU under this circumstance. Applicant here has provided information that this is for a family member with disability that meets the criteria of the statute. Because my next question is, do we know, under definition of, in that statute, there's a definition of disability, and it is what interferes with daily functions of life. It's the general definition that we're usually familiar with, but there's nothing in there to indicate whether or not that exists. Who's the family member? It needs to be a family member of the owner if it is owner occupied. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's not really enough information for us. The statute should control, and then there should be certain pieces of information that should be analyzed to tell us as commissioners whether or not this meets the statutory definition. And if it does, then our answer should be yes. And if it doesn't, then our answer should be no. But it's hard to tell from the information we have. And I realize that there is not anyone here on behalf of the applicant, and that's really their burden, not yours to find out that information, but theirs to provide it. And then I would also ask, has there been any demonstration that there is room for, the state law requires one additional off-street parking space per bedroom for an ADU. Currently, I believe they need 2 off-street parking spaces, correct? It's a single-family house.
There are no additional spaces required for the ADU. We can't ask for more than one, but we haven't passed our ordinance on ADUs yet.
But state law requires that.
It says, the state law, I believe, says we can't require more than one.
For a one-bedroom ADU.
For a one-bedroom
State law
ADU.
requires 1 off-street parking space.
No, it says we can't require more than one. It's different than requiring one.
So I'm reading from 1 additional off-street parking space per bedroom for the ADU shall be provided.
Right, for one.
Parking space. That's what I'm asking. So I said the existing residence has, not the ADU, the primary residence has to have 2 parking spaces. So if we add one.
No, we don't require 2 parking spaces for a single-family home. One
It's
parking space.
Okay.
And 1 for the
I
ADU.
thought it was 2.
You'd think it would because it's 2 for everything else.
Wow. Okay. Then I stand corrected on that one. So my point is just that I think this is governed by state law, and it would be helpful to put what the state law is and then why it does or doesn't meet that. And my other question was, is this the exact footprint of the existing garage? And can I ask our solicitor that generally, if you have a non-conforming structure and it's demolished, do they then have to conform?
That's why they need a variance. Yes, they would.
So they wouldn't be able to keep, do they have to conform with regular lot setbacks, not what existed previously?
They'd have to conform. They need the variances to rebuild non-conforming with the accessory use setbacks.
Even under state law?
If you have, if you have a voluntary demolition of a non-conforming form, or they're coming in for the variance to allow them
Right, it's because they're demolishing that this is in front of you for a variance.
That's because this one would be considered new. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Lanfear. Commissioner Lanfear basically asked a lot of the questions I had anyway, but just so I can understand a couple of things. First, a clarification on the question Commissioner Lanfear raised. So there's not a requirement for them to have 2 parking spaces at this residence when there's an ADU there?
The total new requirement will be 2, one for the single family, one for the ADU.
And that is a state law thing that basically once you put an ADU on your property, you just need 2 parking spaces, one for the house and one for the ADU, or?
No, it's just for one, when you're adding a 1-bedroom ADU, that sparks the need for 1 additional space. And at the moment with a single family, there's only 1 space required.
Okay, so that gets me to my thing. At this particular house or zone or whatever you want to call it, they're only required 1 parking space? Okay. The second question I had is, if this is, this may be the question for the solicitor, is this, say this to the zoning board, which is, are we required to grant this variance by state law? Or we can reject it because they're destroying the building and putting it up? Oh.
They would not be required. No, it's not a by right use. They'll have to prove
Okay, all right. And getting back to the other thing, Ms. Valcourt, that Commissioner Lanfear was asking. The representation made to us by affidavit, because you saw the affidavit, right? Okay, that it's owner occupied and for a family member who's disabled. And that's under oath, right? The affidavit? Okay. And that's the representation I can go under. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's all we can require. Even under the old law, I mean, every year they had to fill out that form, which.
No, I mean, you basically, I don't want to be too flippant about it, but it's a little bit of an honor system, to make sure that this is actually a owner occupied and a family member, unless somebody's going to go out there and knock on the door, which is really a time-consuming enterprise for zoning enforcement to go do. So I just wanted to hear from Ms. Valcourt that you saw the affidavit and that was the representation made.
Correct. The unknown legal issue is, even if that is accurate and true, what happens to the AD, say these people move.
Right.
What happens, is the ADU grandfathered in afterwards? Because it was allowed because it was a disabled family member rather than 20,000 square feet or something.
Right, like 10, 20 years from now, what happens about that? I get it. I just want to understand the legal framework. Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Valcourt on the application? Okay. All right, we'll go to public comment. Is there anyone here wishes to be heard on the Horton application at 20 Swift Street? Seeing none, is there anyone online that wishes to be heard on the Horton 20 Swift Street application?
There is no public comment online.
Okay. All right, are any other further questions or comments from my colleagues on this matter or discussion? I think my own comment before we vote, I think Commissioner Lanfear, you made some valid points about on this ADU stuff, we need a little clarity when you're talking about it, what state law, what's required when we get these reports. I'm inclined to grant the recommendation because although we could deny it, the zoning board could deny it, it's been represented to us under oath that it's a family member who is disabled. So I take people at their word under oath till proven otherwise. Okay, any further discussion? That'd be the time for the motion. I know people have a problem with ADUs, but we can make a motion.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to accept the staff recommendation.
Vice President Coop makes a positive recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Mancini. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Next up, we have the Rhode Island Custom Builders LLC. Oh, boy. Mr. Exter is going to recuse, and we have some people have come in the room. They have some public comment on this matter, I believe. Oh, boy. This is a pretty big application, ladies and gentlemen. We have entered in half the power structure of the, I shouldn't do this online, sorry. All right, Ms. Valcourt, you can proceed with the Rhode Island Custom Builders application.
We have a dimensional variance request at 130 Williston Street. Assessors Plat 9, 317, and 318. The zones are C4 highway business as well as B1 residential, where single family is allowed with 6,000 square feet. The future land use for both lots are single and two family residential, less than 10.89 units per acre. And this proposal is for an existing two-family dwelling to remain on an undersized lot and to separate a contiguous undersized lot to construct a new single-family dwelling. You can see both parcels here in aerial view, and you can see the zoning map, which is showing us one commercial property and one residential zoned property. And you can see them both under the same future land use here. The street view of these adjoined properties is here. You can see the two-family house on the right-hand side and an empty lot on the left. Here's the architectural drawings for the proposed single-family dwelling. Here is the site plan that is currently uploaded. It was provided to us, our department, on 8/27. I had requested that the surveyor add the setbacks for the existing house because this original site plan only had the setbacks for the proposed house. So I asked for the two-family. I wanted the setbacks on there. This is really zoomed out, so I end up typing them out for you in a future slide. You'll see the setbacks in a moment. I also included the merger analysis, which was a 200-foot analysis to help us determine whether provided by a professional land surveyor. He provided this to determine that the lots are unmerged. Before I kind of move forward, I just wanted to give this was a complicated one a bit for me to understand, so I just want to kind of read through what I have here. This 200-foot merger analysis shows that the two lots are unmerged as they are equal or above the median lot size of the area. Due to the fact that the existing building is a two-family dwelling, we are here the commission is here to vote on dimensional relief for the existing building. Note, the proposed single-family building needs no dimensional relief. It is compliant under the state's sliding scale provision. Also note, it is under the planning staff's impression that the zoning code does not explicitly say that the density nor use of the existing lot plays a part in the ability to apply the unmerger analysis. So therefore saying that this 200-foot analysis is not dependent on the use of the existing lots. However, the zoning official feels as though the existing two-family does trigger the need for a dimensional variance. So therefore, the findings of fact here is that there is relief being requested. I believe there's an error showing accessory structure setbacks. I believe that should not be there. So the relief being requested is under 1792, 1720, and 1788. Moving forward, the future land use designates 10.89 units per acre, single and two-family residential. Presently, within a 200-foot radius, there is a density of 12.15. This application would raise that density to 12.18. The dimensions of the proposed single-family dwelling would be allowed by right under the sliding scale. So that brings me to this chart that I actually updated before this meeting. So there's some additional figures in here that correspond to the site plan I had requested with additional dimensions. So really what stands out to me in this chart is, first, we can look at the top, lot 317. This is the proposed lot. All of the relief sought is being compared to what is required per the zone. Okay. If you can see what is proposed is greater than or more compliant to the sliding scale. So just making the point again that the proposed lot is compliant under the sliding scale. We are here to look really at the bottom chart and see that the relief sought is being compared to what is allowed per the zoning. So not to reiterate, but all of what we're kind of focusing on here is the existing building and the setbacks that are required for that building, the existing two-family. Staff finds that this application does not impose undue nuances and is fitting to the character of the surrounding area. 200-foot analysis deems that 50% of the lots are equal to or less than 3,200 square feet. Parking is compliant, and there is alignments with the comprehensive plan under goals H2 and H4, as well as policies H3, 4, 5, 6, and 11. And staff therefore recommends a positive recommendation on the application to the Zoning Board of Review.
Thank you, Ms. Valcourt. Are there any questions or comments? Excuse me, start with questions. Any questions for Ms. Valcourt? Commissioner Lanfear?
Just a quick one. Sometimes there's a 200-foot radius used to do an analysis, and sometimes it's 400 feet. Can you just explain to me why the difference?
I believe that 200 feet is the requirement per the code to formally deem lots unmerged. A 400-foot analysis is like good measure that the planning staff uses to make findings on density if we want to take it a step further, because sometimes there's the 400-foot abutter notices. So if we have such notices, it's kind of nice to make that comparison.
Any other questions for Ms. Valcourt? Director Carrera?
Yeah, they have a proposed driveway in between both lots. Yeah, they do have proposed easement on the plan.
So there would be the sorry, Director Carrera. So this was actually one of my questions as well, I think. So there's a two-family and there's a single-family want to construct, and they're going to be sharing one driveway?
No, there's two driveways proposed
Okay, where's the other driveway?
right here.
Okay. So that driveway is for the new single family?
Correct. And
Okay.
Here's the one
And-
for the two-family.
And the existing two-family, they're gonna construct a driveway for that?
Correct.
Because what are they doing? They're just parking in the middle of this green space? Where are they parking right now?
Where's the original driveway?
I don't see a driveway.
On Google Maps, if you go to,
Just put, you click on your button?
is it on?
Okay,
If you
okay.
go on Google Maps to the left, there's a driveway and a garage, and it's for the back building, the building on the other side of Essex Street.
Right.
But there's nothing on Google Maps right now showing anything for this property, unless they're,
Yeah, you can actually see some cars
Okay.
on.
but they're in Google Maps.
No
they're
formal
showing it.
parking currently. No driveway.
Any other parking questions? Just a quick thing, Ms. Valcorjo. When the applicant put in the representation that's 50% of the lots are 3,200 for square feet or less, did you double check it or you just took it as the representation?
I took it as the representation.
Okay.
It's good, it's in my
Yeah,
opinion.
so that was checked by the building official. So
okay,
while the planning department can check it under the statute, it's really the zoning enforcement officer who has to make that determination. That's Stan Peichel. And this is a unique case that could go to the Supreme Court if it. So what the applicant is saying or their legal position is that the city agrees that the property can be unmerged under the statute. What the applicant's position is that by the lot being unmerged, the city then cannot require any relief for the structure that remains. So they're taking a two-pronged attack. They filed an appeal saying that the building official is incorrect to make them file a zoning application.
Okay.
And then they've also filed a zoning application asking for relief. And we'll argue that next week before the zoning board. The city's position, and frankly, every other city in town, is once you take that land away,
you gotta conform, you gotta ask for relief.
You have to ask for relief. They're saying that the unmerger statute doesn't say that. So therefore you can unmerge something and build whatever you want next door. Our position is, and me and Dave Johnson spoke at length on this, is just because it's unmerged, that doesn't mean, you haven't taken the next step as far as taking the land away from the current. So that's what Brianna was getting to regarding if something's unmerged and why they're only asking for relief for the remaining structure.
Okay. Any.
You look, you give me an inquisitive look. It's a unique situation. No one's ever, we've had unmerger for 5 or 6 years in Cranston before the state law. And no one has ever come forward with an application. So obviously, if you have a house with a lot that needs no relief, it becomes unmerged and you can build. I know of no other town that just says, all right, your lot's unmerged and it doesn't matter what that other house, what's left, parking, setbacks, anything. So it's a unique legal argument, not really before us tonight, but that's their position. And that's why we don't disagree that the lot is greater than 50% of the surrounding area.
Let's see. Okay.
Got it.
Any further questions go ahead, Commissioner Lanfear.
Just one, earlier, you were asked a question about the driveway that they are creating on the two-family existing, which is where they need the relief. Does that, it looked like it went over the what is the new property line between the two properties, does it? So the new driveway encroaches on the unmerged lot by how much?
It's not explicitly noted here. I can tell you that the proposed house here in red is 12 feet away from the property line. The easement looks a little shy of half of that. I'd say about 4 to 5 feet of an encroachment.
And without that easement, the existing two-family would not have a driveway that meets code?
I would agree with that.
All right, if there's not further questions, I'll take public comment. Is there any public comment here tonight on this matter? Seeing none. Is there any public comment online?
There's no public comment online.
Okay. Any further questions or comments about this application? Okay, I'll just make a quick comment myself. Usually, I think people know my practice personally. We have discussions about density. This does exceed the density of the local area. 12, 15 units is the area, and this is 13.81. I'm a little bit on the fence about the fact that half the lots in this area are 3,200 feet. Usually, if it's conforming to the area, I usually agree to it for majority, but this is not a majority, it's 50. But that's my initial thoughts. But sounds like there's a lot more complications with this application than just that, so with the driveway. All right, any other comments or questions before we make motions and vote? Seeing none, then it's motion time for whatever the motion is. There can be a positive or a negative. There also is option 3 called no recommendation, but let's try positive and negative first. Commissioner Barberry?
I'll just make a motion for a positive recommendation and putting that forward.
Okay. Commissioner Barberry is putting forward a positive recommendation. Is there a second to Commissioner Barberry's recommendation? Oh, okay. Commissioner Coop decided to make the motion for a positive recommendation. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we will proceed with a vote. Okay, Mr. Ray, pay attention. This is probably a close vote here. We'll see. All those in favor of a positive recommendation signify by saying aye. Mr. Barberry, Mr. Coop, all those in favor, all those opposed to a positive recommendation signify by raising your hand. That's Ms. Mancini, Mr. Correo, Mr. Zadelis, Ms. Renzulli, Ms. Lampier, myself. Okay, so that was denied. So now I believe the other alternative is to make a negative recommendation. To the zoning board. Mr. Zadelis has made a negative recommendation. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lampier. Is there any further discussion? Oh, Commissioner Lampier has further discussion.
I would like to be sure that our recommendation advises the zoning board that our decision is based on density and the inability to provide a driveway that meets code on the property.
Okay, so that recommendation is a negative based on density of the existing neighborhood and the lack of a driveway that meets code. Okay. We're all clear? All right. All those in favor of the Zadelis Lampier motion for a negative recommendation signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay by Commissioner Coop and Commissioner Barbary. Passes 6-2. Okay. All right, thank you. Next one. You can come back, Mr. Extra. You missed the excitement. When you're ready, Mr. Ray, you can proceed.
Thank you. So there's a dimensional variance request for signage at 2050 Plainfield Pike. It's in a C5 zone. And it's to allow relief from the sign requirements to replace an existing 8-foot by 3-foot sign with a new 8-foot by 4-foot sign. This is the aerial view. This is the existing sign and the proposed sign. And the applicant has requested specific relief in their application, namely the maximum area sign requirement, requesting 12.5 square feet relief, the maximum height requirement, requesting 0.23 feet, the minimum side setback requirement, and the total sign area requirement. All right. Staff finds that this application does not impose undue nuisances and is not out of character beyond any other uses on this site or within the surrounding area. The proposed signage is appropriately scaled for this heavy business commercial area and would be of comparable size to the signage on neighboring properties. And the proposed signage will replace an existing sign, resulting in minimum impact on the streetscape. So with that, I'll give a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Is there any questions for Mr. Ray on this application? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone who'd like to give public comment on this application in the room? Seeing none, Mr. Leamer, is there anyone online? There's one person there. See if they want to make any public comment.
There is no public comment online.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's no public comment. Anyone think of any questions they want to ask Mr. Ray before we go to motion time? Last chance. You sure, Mr. Correa? Okay. All right, motion time.
President, I'll make a motion to forward a positive recommendation.
Oh, positive recommendation made by Vice Chairman Coop, seconded by Director Zadelis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations on your first presentation, Mr. Ray. All right. We are now at the City Planning Director's report. Ms. Ashman, you have stuff you want to talk to us about?
Anticipating that the hour would be late, I passed out a memo of activities that have gone on in the planning department that you might want to know about. And also in addition, on the website, we have a administrative officers report. And we realized that came up, we posted that today, but that's a good practice for us to do at the monthly meeting, is to give a full accounting of the administrative officer approvals that happened during the month. So we submitted a report from the beginning of the fiscal year to now.
Thank you, Director Ashman. Are there any questions for Ms. Ashman from the commissioners? And of course, if you do have questions after reading the report, Ms. Ashman will certainly, I assume, take your phone call and give you a question, answer your questions. Okay, if there's nothing else, I think I know what is there anything, Mr. Marcello, before we adjourn, we need to deal with legally? Okay, no, you're just looking at me, I was like, oh, just wondering. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll have a motion to adjourn would be in order. It's moved by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Renzulli. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Good evening, and I'll see you next month.